Mr Acting Speaker, the national accounts released this week reiterate the need for Australia to work hard for future economic growth. Complacency is our enemy. After an almost unprecedented 23 consecutive years of economic growth, prosperity will not come our way with a policy to do nothing about our future. Today, I reiterate to the Parliament the government's plan for strengthening Australia's economic growth and future prosperity. Our plan will ensure that the high living standards we enjoy today will continue for future generations. The government is embarking on a range of structural reforms that will help our economy to be more competitive and more resilient in the face of ongoing global economic change. Without economic reform, the economy will drift. Without economic reform, the economy will be more exposed to global volatility. Without economic reform, our future prosperity is not assured. Since coming to government just over 12 months ago, much economic reform has been achieved. Some of these decisions are delivering benefits now. Others are providing exciting future opportunities. To start, we have removed the carbon tax, which is already delivering lower electricity prices and helping ease cost of living pressures on everyday household budgets. And lower energy costs, which lower the costs of production, have helped Australian businesses cope with the downside impact of a stubbornly high Australian dollar. We have also honoured our pledge to abolish the minerals resource rent tax. The mining tax raised just 2% of its forecast revenue, but the fiscal mess came about because the previous government committed to new spending as if the tax raised 100% of its forecast revenue. It was a disaster on many fronts, but most significantly it discouraged investment and raised sovereign risk around a sector that already has long-term inbuilt price and construction risks. So now is the right time to create a more positive investment environment for the mining and resource sector. In the last 12 months, we have accelerated planning approvals for over 300 major new projects around Australia that will deliver over $1 trillion of output for our country. Many of these projects in the mining and resources sector will help fuel Australia's future growth. As we witness the emergence of a new 2 billion people strong middle class in Asia over the next 3 decades, what Australia has to potentially export will be in more demand than ever. This is our growth opportunity. By 2030, 2/3 of the global middle class will be residents of the Asia-Pacific region. China currently has a middle class of around 150 million people. This is expected to reach 1 billion people in just 16 years. India's middle class of 200 million people will triple in size over the same period. So during this massive period of unprecedented growth, our energy and resources will help build the cities and infrastructure of a rapidly growing India, China, Indonesia and Greater Asia. Regional demand for our hard commodities, such as iron ore, coal, copper, uranium and gold, will not diminish, it will grow substantially. And regional demand for our soft commodities, such as wheat, beef, lamb, dairy products and the like, will also grow substantially. So now is also the time to diversify and strengthen our other export industries to meet head-on the massive growth in demand out of Asia. In the case of services industries that represent 70% of the Australian economy, we have massive export growth potential. Australians involved in businesses that deliver services such as aged care, financial services, healthcare, construction and engineering, logistics and property services all have big growth opportunities right across Asia. Some service industries like education, tourism and hospitality have realigned over time to focus more on the Asian century of growth. But that does not exclude the need for further reform to cope with new and increased competition. That is why, for example, the government's higher education reforms are essential. They do not only deliver better quality education services for Australians, but they provide our campuses with the opportunity to capitalise on the massive growth across the region. In other areas, such as communications, media and entertainment, and sport and culture, we have sophisticated skills that can meet the increasing demands of the world's new affluent consumers in Asia. Currently, services exports represent only 17% of our exports. New growth in services exports is a blue sky opportunity for many Australians, particularly those involved in our precious small businesses. That's why this year we have successfully negotiated new free trade agreements with some of our biggest trading partners after years of procrastination. New trade agreements with Korea, Japan and China make our exports more affordable for their citizens and make their exports to us more affordable for our citizens, everyday Australians. The government recognises that it has been hard for Australians to give away industry subsidies this year. But if we are to successfully convince other countries with much larger markets to make room for Australian exports, then we need to give them the same sort of equal access to our marketplace. At the same time, we should never discount our ability to compete with and beat the best of the world in advanced manufacturing, software development and medical research. Our innovation is world-class, and with the new streams of capital available, we can commercialise and export to our own great advantage. As a nation, we produce much more than we consume, so breaking down global trade barriers makes us a richer country and it future-proofs our prosperity. In order to facilitate our future, we must have productive and efficient infrastructure. This year, we have cleaned up the inherited mess of the national broadband network. We have quarantined the losses, and we're now building the network to ensure that Australians receive affordable and accessible high-speed broadband. As planned in the budget, we are also delivering the largest national infrastructure program in our nation's history. Australians have often said, Madam Speaker, we need a new Snowy Mountain schemes. How many times have we heard that? And it took 25 years to build the original Snowy Mountain scheme. The coalition government, in this year's budget, is facilitating the delivery of the equivalent of 8 new Snowy Mountain schemes over the next 10 years, with projects like WestConnex, upgrades to the North-South Corridor in Adelaide and the Perth Freight Link. And as a result of our new spending and our asset recycling initiative in particular, this is driving unprecedented microeconomic reform at a state level. The sober reality of constrained finances is now hitting state and territory governments that are facing massive infrastructure demands. We are facilitating a new wave of construction by rewarding states with new additional funding for infrastructure if they redeploy locked-up capital in existing assets. This will support near-term economic growth and boost productivity over the medium to long term. By putting government businesses into the productive hands of the private sector, we can deliver both better and greater services to households and improve the productive capacity of our economy. Of course, we have done our part this year by selling Medibank Private, which was the third largest initial public offering in the world this year, returning $5.7 billion to the budget, $1 billion more than expected, and that has helped to pay for new infrastructure around Australia. For business to be less constrained, we must remove the logjam of regulation. Through dedicated parliamentary repeal days, we have removed around 57,000 pages of government regulation and legislation. This saves Australian businesses around $2 billion a year of red tape costs. And at the beginning of this year, we inherited nearly 100 announced but unlegislated taxation measures dating back 12 years that created uncertainty and regulatory instability for taxpayers. We have, this year, resolved the mess and removed that backlog of uncertainty. Madam Speaker, yesterday's national accounts highlight an Australian economy continuing to grow and an economy transitioning from a mining boom to one with broader-based growth. This is an adjustment that we expected. Going forward, there are reasons to be optimistic about continuing economic growth. Consumers are becoming more confident and are showing early signs of a willingness to spend more. Retail sales figures released today rose for the 5th consecutive month and are now nearly 6% higher over the year. Consumer confidence data has rebounded to above long-run averages. This is a further positive sign for our retailers going into the Christmas trading season. Businesses are more optimistic about trading conditions, which is a precursor to greater investment and hiring. This is supported by job vacancies data, which is now a 20-month high. And our export volumes continue to increase. This is reaping the dividends of past investments, not only in the resources sector, but also in services industries like tourism and education. Yes, we face many challenges. We are feeling the headwinds of weaker global demand, which has led to the considerable fall in commodity prices. Iron ore represents around a fifth of our export income. I say again, iron ore represents around a fifth of our export income, and prices have fallen by more than 30% since the budget. We have also seen falls in prices of other major commodities, such as thermal coal and wheat. Despite these headwinds, the economy will continue to grow and jobs will continue to be created. But government revenues have been impacted by a larger than anticipated decline in our terms of trade. This means the government will collect less in tax, which makes it harder to pay for existing government services. On top of this, we have softer wages growth as the labour market adjusts to the transition underway in our economy. This too has a detrimental impact on revenue. While these factors have made budget repair harder, they do not alter its necessity. Without the measures announced in this year's budget, deficits were projected for at least the next decade, a total of 16 years of consecutive deficits, leaving Australia vulnerable to external shocks, less equipped to cope with the ageing population and increasingly reliant on future generations to pay off our debt. Without action, every Australian born in 10 years' time, in 2024, would start life with a government debt of $25,000. This intergenerational buck passing is unfair. When preparing the budget, the government was very mindful that we should deliver an economically responsible fiscal consolidation both in size and in timing. The structural budget savings we put forward, such as making Medicare and the PBS more sustainable and welfare distribution fairer, were designed to ensure that the financial impact was relatively small in the short term, but delivered increasing budget repair over the medium to longer term. We have also delivered a plan that carefully navigates the transition from the resources boom. Australia's incomes and living standards have, over the past decade, been boosted by unprecedented investment and profits in our resources sector. As the resources investment boom abates, the transition of our economy to more balanced sources of growth will depend on demand for goods and services in other sectors. That demand will then attract resources to those sectors, drive investment and create jobs. A sustained improvement in public finances is an essential part of these plans. The current economic environment reinforces the importance of getting the budget back in order. I urge the Labor Party, together with the Senate, to take a more mature and collaborative approach to addressing the challenge of budget repair. This is what Australians want if we are going to be able, as a nation, to afford our future.
The Treasurer has the call.
Blanket opposition and mindless resistance is nothing to boast about if you truly care about Australia's future. Early next year, the government will be releasing an intergenerational report containing 40 years of budget projections. Like earlier intergenerational reports, it will show that as Australia's population ages, labour force participation will fall. Without economic reform, this will slow the economy, reduce growth in the government's revenue base and create additional demands on government spending, particularly in health, aged care and pensions, which represent around 10% of government expenditure. With the terms of trade in decline and population ageing weighing on workforce participation, the key to sustaining growth in living standards is raising Australia's productivity. Over a year ago, as a new Treasurer, I said there could even be periods where living standards actually decline. We don't want that. If we want to sustain national income growth at its 30-year average, there will need to be a very significant lift in productivity growth. I said that a year ago and I say it again today. The drop in national income recorded in yesterday's national accounts highlights that this risk is real. All of the government's actions are being taken with these risks in mind. The government will support Australia's productive potential in 2015 by investing in infrastructure, improving the efficiency of the federation and the taxation and financial systems, and by sustaining our focus on competition and deregulation. We are transforming industry policy to support innovation and entrepreneurship. We have provided more incentives for new start-up business growth with landmark changes to employee share schemes. Madam Speaker, enterprise will drive our growth. Business will drive job creation. And this combination of investment and structural reforms will support Australia's long-term rate of economic growth. In 2014, we made great progress in strengthening the Australian economy so that it is able to better cope with external challenges and internal transitions. But, Madam Speaker, more work needs to be done. Reform has no finishing line in the 21st century. With the government's economic action strategy underway, we will all be able to achieve what we hope for, that is, a better and more prosperous future for our nation. Thank you very much.
If the Treasurer would present his ministerial statement.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I ask leave of the House to move a motion to enable the member for McMahon to speak for 18 minutes.
The question is leave granted? Leave is granted. Minister.
I move that so much of the standing and sessional orders be suspended as would prevent the member for McMahon speaking in reply to the minister's statement for a period not exceeding 18 minutes.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. All those in favour please say aye. The contrary no. I think the ayes have it.
Madam Speaker, just before the member for McMahon does respond to my ministerial statement, with your indulgence, I'd like to just say a few words.
The Treasurer has the call.
Madam Speaker, firstly, can I take the opportunity to wish you and all the parliamentary team a wonderful Christmas and a restful Christmas and a very happy New Year. Can I also express my deep appreciation to my colleagues for all that they have done this year. I know it's hard. And in many ways I've been there before. A number of in fact, I was right up there where the and that's where I started in '96 when Peter Costello delivered that budget. But I want to say to you, thank you so much for your support. I deeply appreciate it. And what I appreciate most is that you share with me and the rest of the government the desire to make Australia a better place. And that is a deep desire. I do want to take the opportunity to wish the member for McMahon a very good Christmas and a happy New Year. He, like me, has young children. He has a very tolerant wife. I'm sure Beck's very tolerant. And I certainly wish Gracie and Max all the best from Santa Claus. It is a discreet moment that I'll never share, but each year I do dress up as Santa Claus for my children. That's right. I don't know that I can get down the chimney, but I'll give it a reasonable shot. Can I also take the opportunity to thank my staff who have done an outstanding job during the year. Led by Grant Lovett, who has done a great job. We've chaired the G20 this year with the same number of staff and trying to have the year of reform, deliver what we've had to deliver this year, and at the same time lead the world in the economic debate has been incredibly challenging. It's been a blessing in a sense that most of the G7, in fact I think all of the G7, are north of in the Northern Hemisphere. So that means we make calls and do our work in the middle of the night for the G20 and during the day do the work that Australians expect domestically. Finally, I want to take the opportunity to thank my wife and children for what they've been through this year, and I did. I'm the patron of the men that bat above their weight club, which is saying something in my case. They've put up with a hell of a lot in so many different areas. I suspect other treasurers have been in the very same place, but it has been very, very difficult for them, and I'm so grateful for their forbearance. To the people of Australia, the most important reason why we're all here. I don't doubt the goodwill of the Labor Party, the Independents, the Greens or anyone else. I know deep in our hearts we have a desire to see Australia a better place, to see our nation more prosperous, and we are all going to work in that direction. I really hope that in 2015 Australia is an even better nation than the best dreams of the best Australians. I have absolute confidence that Australia's future is better right now than at any time during my lifetime, and everyone will continue to work as hard as they possibly can to make sure that dream comes true. Thank you very much.